not.
I did too.
It happened. All right, we're live. We're really live for real. Tonight is Astrology Night. I've been really waiting for this one.
I have to.
It's going to be a good one. So, okay, so we kind of like wait a second here and see who's going to pop into the live stream. For those of you who are here now and already know what we've been up to, we're doing a Kickstarter for post-production on 2 paranormal TV shows. One is episodic, and we're going to do some investigations, like pretty much one-offs, although I feel like they might not be one-offs when we're done, like with some places, Tigresse. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they're generally one-offs, and we go to places that have reports of high strangeness, and it could be anything.
I love that phrase, high strangeness. Yeah. This of high strangeness.
Yeah, all the weird. And the other strangeness. I'm full of high strangeness. I don't know about you guys.
Can I ask, because I watched the live stream, but can I ask, what was the one moment of high strangeness that you were like, this is amazing? Your favorite moment of high strangeness?
Oh, Tigresse, you go first, unless you want me to.
There's been so many. Okay, you go first.
Of high strangeness?
That we loved.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have to say, being fed on by a vampire.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah.
How did that feel? Because I feel like I am fed on by a vampire every day of my life. Every time I go outside of my house,
like
yeah, by vampires.
So, I know it didn't feel like that. It was very.
But it didn't feel bad.
No. Hi, Karen. Nice to see you. So. I kind of want to. Hi, Aziz.
I know you want to save it for the show.
Yeah, I want to save it.
But give us a little hint, an adjective.
Okay,
describe.
I'll say that I've had pretty much every kind of like healing Jimmy Jan thing. Like I've done Reiki and craniosacral therapy and you name it, magic mushrooms, like the whole gamut of things. I've always been one to like dive off the deep end. Nothing has ever felt like being fed on by a vampire.
In a good way or a in a cleansing way?
Hair like twirl with
in a sexual way? Are we going there?
No, that's a good question though. Hi, Lisa. So all of the above. It was positive and negative, and you'll just have to see like why it was negative. It was actually mostly my choice that kind of made it a negative experience, which I can't tell you anything about. I'm spoiler.
So you guys, let this be a tip for the show. You want to fund this show, you want to watch this show, because there's going to be some talk about what it's like to be fed on by a vampire, which I am dying to know what it's like. And it sounds like it's not bad in the way of, from what I've heard of what you guys have been describing as far as what like being an energy vampire or a psychic vampire is like, it almost sounds the exact opposite of my experience in life, which is my experience in life is I go outside, I interact with any human being, and I need to close the door,
down,
go into bed and like hunker down.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I need to restore my energy. I feel like I am vampire food, and other people are the vampire vampires.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that though.
Okay.
Like, I think most people have a huge misconception about what it means to be a vampire, but then also they don't, because there is a brand of vampires that feed in a way that's not consensual, and that very much can make you feel exactly like you're describing. So yeah. I mean, it's kind of like just like all the other species of things. There's like cool, shitty, middle ground. Like it's the same for vampires. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like going out in public is for me constantly being barraged by non-consensual vampires.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're going to get into so much astrology, but real quick, what is your sun sign?
Oh, my sun sign's Virgo and my rising sign's Libra. So I have a 12th house sun. You have a lot of 12th house energy in your chart. You are 12th house moon. I'm pointing probably the wrong way. Fen, I'm just going to say names. Fen has a lot of 12th house energy because Fen's moon is in the 12th house. And I know that ties in a lot with your mother introducing you to the spiritual. And the 12th house is the house of this isolated house. It's the house of self-undoing in many ways. It's the house of liminal spaces. I also call it the gayest house because every single person I know who has lots of 12th house energy, they are queer.
So funny.
So yeah, 12th house is the queerest house, but it's associated with exile. It's associated with isolation. It's associated with meditation, but in a big, huge way. It's the liminal spaces. It's this world between worlds. In ancient Greece, it's called the metacosmos, which is it's also the part of your chart that is rising when your mother is in labor. So that part of your chart tells you a lot about what your mother's labor experience was like. And also, I mean, it's your passage through the birth canal is the 12th house. So people with a lot of 12th house energy in a very positive way are able to connect to that space that is between the material world and the spiritual world. They're able to communicate with beings and creatures. And that's why all of us 12th house people were like cryptids, yes. We're like aliens, yes.
Mermaid.
We're like fae. We're like, if it is a creature that cannot necessarily be seen all the time, but is out there, we're like, yes, we want it, we are it. Let me be taken by the aliens, please.
Yes.
Let me
accurate.
watch. I need it now. Yeah.
I need it now.
I need Sasquatch right now. I need to see it right now. So that's
the Gothic vampire witch.
We're already diving straight into astrology. And for those of you who are new to the astrology thing and don't have much context, I always like to give a little overview of what astrology is, why it's important, and why it's both fun and it makes your life better. The reason that the ancients back thousands of years ago came up with this system for it's really a language to describe karma. And it's a language to describe fate and fortune as the wheel of fate and fortune in all of our lives is constantly turning. And if you, as an incarnated being on this planet, are able to see, oh, during this period of my life, things are going to be relatively good in this area. Mostly it's in this area, you're going to have things be relatively objectively or subjectively positive, and you might have, you can tell specifically in this other area you might have some subjectively negative things, but that period of subjectively positive things is going to last from here to here. And then, okay, then from here to here, you're going to have a period in your life that's going to be filled with some subjectively negative things. And they're going to look like this, and they're going to have this specific coloring to them. And, but it's going to start and end at a very specific time. And when you know that these subjectively positive things and subjectively negative things are going to happen at certain points in your life, instead of being like, woohoo, positive things all the time. Right now, I'm winning. I'm killing it. I'm booked and busy. I am reaping in all the abundance. Instead of being like, this is going to last forever, you can be like, okay, actually, I'm in this period where things are really subjectively positive for me right now. That's awesome. I'm going to appreciate that. But I know as soon as Saturn moves into my 5th house, which I dealt with, things are not going to be fun. And so I'm going to enjoy this little period while it lasts, but I'm also going to know that it's going to be ending. And then when you are also having a period where things are real hard and tough and not fun, you know that it's not going to last that way forever, and it is going to change, and things are going to get better after a certain period of time. So when you know this, you can stay centered on the Wheel of Fortune, and instead of being constantly thrown off by things are good, things are bad, oh no, you can be like, okay, this is my life. It really helps you look at it from like a very objective standpoint and not get so wrapped up in things. And so it helps you be more stoic and hopefully more self-aware as well of what certain energies are grabbing you and grabbing your attention at any time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly why I love astrology and have been like drawn to it for so long, is because it was a space, even unknowingly, like when I was younger, just looking at it out of interest, like it does help you accept the duality that life has. I love using that word. I use it all the time in my lives and reels on Instagram. And I have the Wheel of Fortune tattooed on me too.
Awesome.
The High Priestess, those are my favorite cards because it's just those reminders, right? Specifically with the Wheel of Fortune, how just as easy or as beautiful as things that are going up, and things are happening for you just in that period of time. It's also a reminder to like balance that out and to accept once again that duality of life of like, it's not always like this, and to be grateful for everything that means.
Yeah. It's actually like reminding me of Buddhism too. The 2 wings of the bird, like non-reaction and then impermanence. It's like, this is not going to last forever. And also I just kind of need to cultivate that ability to not react to everything, whether it's good or it's bad, good or bad, right? Like that's kind of
how like this is just a universal theme, no matter if you're looking at astrology or Buddhism or Stoicism, like it's all kind of the same.
Well, or go ahead.
Oh, there's going to be a period in all of our lives where the tree grows and flowers, and then there's going to be periods where the tree drops its leaves, where the leaves then go into the ground and fertilize the soil, and the tree is looking ugly, but then just wait a little period, and then the tree will blossom again. And that's the cycle of astrology, which is, this is the period of blossoming. This is the period where you're fertilizing the soil. And that's the cycle. For many of us, that cycle happens every 12 years. But on a bigger spectrum, you can do things like zodiacal releasing. And zodiacal releasing lets you break up your life into specific chapters and lets you show you when you're going to be having the most eminence, when, basically the world is going to be seeing you and seeing what you've manifested out of your life. And then there's going to be that whole period where you're building up to that point. And then there's going to be, after that period is over, that period of leaves falling off the tree, and it's just, I personally find when you know that that's the chart of your life, instead of constantly trying to hustle and constantly trying to fight against the waves, just follow your bliss instead, as it were. And I do see a trend in astrology towards the winning at capitalism astrology, which is not the message of the ancients.
The opposite.
Yes, the ancients did not invent astrology so that you could use it to manifest wealth and abundance and become, a winner at capitalism. Yeah, it's astrology is an art that's very personal. It's about you understanding your role and your purpose in the universe, and maintaining centerness on the Wheel of Fortune.
I love that. That's great.
So just because some people have been popping in, and I'm sure there are more who aren't commenting. I just want to make sure everybody knows who everybody is and what this is about. So this is a little astrology jam, and we're going to talk about just like, what's happening in astrology right now, because Carly Heath is, really great at that. Also, Tigresse, this is your, in your wheelhouse as well. So I'd love to hear from both of you about that. But I also want to say to everyone that this is something that we use so much in the shows. I mean, we would think about like, okay, what day is this? Should we be doing a ritual this day? And we would be, a lot of times asking Carly and, texting, like, hey, would this be the right day to do this? And I think it would be great for both of you to talk a little bit about, this is something that I encounter every single day because I work at a bar too. And there are people who, when they hear me talking about astrology and just like your top 3 or whatever, your sun, rising, moon, they're like, I don't believe in that shit. You really believe in that shit? That stuff is stupid. Oh, or like especially I work with a lot of dudes sometimes and they all get together and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And I'd love just like a quick, like, fuck you.
I don't know. It's not my job. It's not my job to evangelical.
Hard to convince people who don't want to be convinced or to listen.
Yeah,
or especially
record
men.
Men.
Yes, it's not my job to educate men, and men are not open to being educated by anyone other than cis men. That's how they are. That's why, that's why everything is so messed up right now. I would love to actually put the current astrology in the context of Tigresse's chart, since Tigresse is going through a major transit right now.
Before we do that, let's take a quick break and just like I'll even just do a quick. So Carly, I met on Follow the Woo podcast, which is a podcast that I host. And it was actually, we went down a rabbit hole about the book that you wrote, which is incredible. It's a great book and you should talk about that. But also we went on a mega deep dive on astrology. And so ever since then, like I said, I've been contacting Carly to be like, hey, should we do this day, whatever. And then Tigresse is a main player of Inhuman Beings, which is the episodic investigation show that we are trying to fund via Kickstarter. So yeah, and Tigresse, you can talk more on this, but definitely astrology and divination has been like, kind of your jam for the show, although we kind of all crisscross into things, but that was your central focus.
Yeah, using astrology, tarot, any knowledge at all to help create the energy of the show. I have been loving using astrology as a way to make sense of everything, to make sense of the world. And in this case, even beyond our world, how that plays into everything, because everything does play into everything. Everything is super universal and means so many different things. So yeah, check it out. If you can, support us. It's a really good time, if nothing else. But I also think it is an opportunity to learn about all the different modalities that can help us understand our world and our inner selves, as well as outside of that, and even the things that we can't see.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. And also, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask, as these two experts. I am not the expert in astrology. These are the people that I contact when I need information. So feel free to ask questions along the way. We might not like stop right away for them, but we'll keep it up on the screen and come back to it.
Actually, I love Karen's question. If astrology tells you how your life is going to go, does it predict your death? Yes, it does. You can actually do a length of life prediction, which is a very complicated calculation, which I do not personally know. I looked briefly into it and I was like, this is a little bit more complicated, and I wasn't motivated enough to learn it. But there are some astrologers who do know that length of life calculation, and they can, if you're interested in knowing how long you will live and when you will die, there are astrologers who are trained in that and know how to do it.
There is a little bit that you could look into on your own if you look at like your 12th house, which does sometimes rule death. Scorpio 8th house sometimes will be an indication. Your Mars placement will maybe be an indication, not always for certain. Like Carly is saying, you would need to look to another astrologer who could look at that in depth.
I certainly wish that submarine billionaire had contacted an astrologer before going on a submarine when Saturn is in Pisces. I have his chart up here. We can talk about it.
Yes,
Well, I would love to talk about it, and it's really sad. It's like, of course, of all the people to be on that boat, it's like, Jesus, like, of course.
Well, what's also really interesting is there was a 19-year-old on that.
Yes, I know.
And so if you know about annual perfections, you know that when you hit 19, you are in your 8th house year, which is the house of death. And so personally, as a 19-year-old, if I would not be doing risky things. And I think he sensed that something was going to go wrong because he had said that he didn't want to go and he was just going to please his dad. And he ended up dying. Let that be a lesson to you. Be very careful during your 8th house year.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that we're having a little moment where we're deeply horrified, and then we release a laugh, we tell a little joke, and that is Saturn right there. Saturn is a planet that is very tied to that very unique human condition, which is the draw towards horror and the draw towards humor. Humor and horror are just essential cathartic emotions that humans experience. And what Saturn does, and I've been kind of exploring this a little bit more, as Saturn is a planet that deals with feigned appearances. It's a planet that often is very prominent in the charts of actors and comedians. And Saturn is the planet that stops things from going too far. It's the starting point and the stopping point. So whenever you're starting to feel like you're going really, really deep down into the darkness, Saturn will bring in a joke and stop that. Similarly, if you're starting to go too high and you're starting to be real silly, Saturn will be like, okay, now.
Yeah.
Simmer down.
Don't get too happy.
Yeah. So we've been seeing on social media this interplay between horror and humor and the Saturn and Pisces constantly. As soon as, someone makes a joke about the submarine billionaire, people will be like, oh, that's inappropriate. And then as soon as people are like, empathy for the submarine billionaire, people will be in their mentions making jokes. So you're constantly seeing that cycle of humor and horror. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I mean, but that's the thing. What astrology does, it totally takes you out of the material world, and you're like, I am observing things. I am observing the karma that the astrology language has given us, and you then become completely detached from it, and you're like, oh, this is wow, amazing. It's all like playing out like a little stage play.
I think Pluto, which is in retrograde right now, is also giving that similar energy because it is in Aquarius, but with it being in retrograde.
Well, no, it just dipped back into Capricorn.
Exactly. It rolled back into Capricorn. And so we're getting those strong Saturn / Capricornian themes. And traditionally it rules over Saturn rules over Aquarius as well. So it's this double down feeling of like needing to slow down and look around and being careful, but also looking at the future and being forward thinking and not being so stuck in our ways, like in a way being disciplined and stable, but still projecting forward and being innovative in a way. It's a weird dichotomy. Dichotomy.
Oh my God. I love it. I
like that word.
Dichotomy is the comedy that erupts from horror.
Yeah, Pluto, the planet of the underworld, and like back to
from the contrast between horror and humor is dichotomy.
Being dragged to the depths, like you said, literally. The submarine thing is insane. It's insane.
Okay, so I want to talk about your chart because you are having a Saturn return.
This is Tigresse.
Yes. And so I want to give a little overview of Tigresse's chart for those watching at home, so that we can kind of put into context who Tigresse is and what Tigresse is going through right now.
And can you comment, like, just even a teeny bit about how Tigresse's chart might play out, like, might make sense within the context of the show as well,
totally.
like as the role that she has in the show? Okay.
So Tigresse is a Capricorn rising with Saturn, which is a very, very important planet. That's the ruling planet of Capricorn in the third house of which is ruled by Pisces. And then Pisces, that third house, is being provided for by a 12th house Jupiter, which is well dignified in Sagittarius. And then what we need to know, though, about this, we also see Tigresse's a new moon baby, Saturn, Sun. I can't talk. Sun and Moon conjunct in Cancer in the 7th house. So let's break that down and what that means. So according to the principle of sect, which is the ancient Hellenistic type of astrology that I do, which deals with these rules that were laid out over 2,000 years ago, that developed in the period in human history that was kind of centered around the Mediterranean, where Greco-Roman astrology met up with Egyptian astrology and they kind of melded. And then there's all of these rules, and you can get really, really specific with these amazing calculations to predict who this person is, what their challenges will be in their life, and then how their life will progress. And so according to the principle of sect, Tigresse is a night chart. Tigresse was born during the night when the sun was below the horizon. So that means the most beneficial planet in Tigresse's chart is going to be Venus, which is in the 6th house. The 6th house is a house that deals with servitude. And I've been dealing with 6th house stuff all year because I'm in the 6th house perfection right now, which deals with being of service to others. And in Tigresse's chart, the 6th house is Gemini, ruled by a well-dignified Mercury. So being of service in terms of communication, being of service as a psychopomp, being of service in things like writing and things like negotiations with others and things in serving some cause, diligently, working on behalf of Mercury. That's what Venus is doing in Tigresse's chart, which will bring some benefits, but there's also some challenges based on some aspects that are happening here. Then the most difficult planet in Tigresse's chart is that 3rd house Saturn, which is also the ruler of the ascendant. So we got to break down the 3rd house. Well, actually, let's first break down what Saturn is and how Saturn functions in a night chart. So I'm a day chart Saturn. So when Saturn is functioning in a day chart and it's very helpful, it can do things like set boundaries. It can do things like make you work hard, make you happy with putting in time on something, putting in a long period of time on something. When Saturn is in a night chart, it's a planet of oppression. It's a planet of things being impossibly slow, rejections, endings, death, very prominently. When it's in the 3rd house, which deals with things like siblings, writing, your roommates, your neighbor, your community, your neighborhood, it can, now I'm thinking of a 3rd house Saturn transit I had, it can lead to difficulties, strife, complications with siblings, with the people that you work and live with neighbors, and also transportation, your cars breaking down.
Yeah, we do know about that.
Car wrecks.
So yeah, I would love to hear from you. What have been, since you've been having your Saturn return in your third house? So again, this is a time where you really want to pay very close attention, because like our friend Hamish, Saturn is a very difficult planet in your chart, and it's ruling your ascendant. So this Saturn return for you is going to be the most difficult period of your life until it ends.
No.
I know it's gonna.
No. This is astrology, right?
Yeah. This is
gonna be the most difficult period of your life. Yeah. And the nice thing is, I also had a Saturn return, and it was the most difficult period of my life. But when it was over, it was fine. It was like, okay, it's over. Good. I don't have to deal with that anymore. Excellent. Done. Until you're 60. You have to deal with it again when you're 60. Hamish was also having a Saturn return. Did I say that? I probably did. So because it's ruling your ascendant, you are a night chart. It's going to be real hard until 2025. Is that when Saturn leaves Pisces?
I think around then. Yeah, because Saturn has about like a couple years in each planet, so that's about right.
Yeah. So you're also going to be, because your Pisces, your third house, is ruled by that 12th house Jupiter. Issues like, you may see issues around you of substance abuse, of people who are working against your best interests. Since it's third house deals with neighborhoods, you might have issues with mental disturbances and substance abuse in your living situation, and your people who live in your vicinity around you. Often we see really difficult malefic planets in the charts of serial killers. So, being aware of crime around you. I'm serious. Like, this is, it's
true. Yes, these are all true. Yeah.
A lot of really challenging themes will come up between now and 2025 for you. So I'm curious, so you've already had some car difficulty. Have you had neighbor and or sibling difficulty?
I think that because Saturn is so prominent in my chart, it's my rising. These are themes and stuff that I have always struggled with, and it is coming out in a bigger, more extreme way right now. But I think, like you were saying earlier, it's because I need to take the time to look at it and really how I interpret it. Like, have I learned these lessons? Like, basically my entire life, have I learned the lessons I've needed to learn in order to now deal with these changes and transformations and difficulties that are popping up right now? I was talking to a friend yesterday or last night, and I was like, I thought I hit my Saturn return because it ranges between like the ages of like 26, 27, all the way up to 29, 30. I thought I hit that. I thought I was already. Hi, Becky.
Hey, Becky. So a great way to find out when your Saturn return is first pull up a chart you go to astroseek.com or astro.com, which are two great astrology websites. And then put in your birth details, and you will see your astrology chart. And it's really great. And then
does it tell you your Saturn return?
Well, and you have to do a little bit of learning. But what you can do is you can click on, once you've pulled up your chart on AstroSeek, you can then click up the transit chart, and it will line up and it will show you where all of your planets are. So you might need to, if you're a little overwhelmed with all the symbolism and the way the graph is and everything, you might want to bring your chart to an astrologer to have them tell you. But most astrologers who are good will let you know when your Saturn return is. That's kind of one of the first things that they point out, because in everyone's life, the Saturn return when you're between like 27 and 30, and then the second Saturn return when you're like between 58 and like 60. Those are the most important periods of your life where you either are proven to have learned your lesson or you did not learn your lesson. But either way, it's going to be a time of suffering. It's going to be, it's that because Saturn is the planet that teaches us about being exiled and about being rejected. And it's the planet of outsiders. So something that you can do while you're working through your Saturn return will definitely make peace with the fact that it's going to be hard. You're going to experience the worst, most difficult circumstances of your life, and that's how it is. But you can also do something called planetary charity, which is a medieval tradition where you donate a certain amount of money on a certain day to a specific cause that the planet likes. So in the case of Saturn, the children of Saturn are the unhoused people. So if you donate every Saturday in amounts of $9, I actually started doing this when I had my Saturn perfections, and I still do it. I just have an automatic payment that goes. So every Saturday, $9 gets sent to the LA Family Housing charity to benefit unhoused people. So yeah, find a charity, donate $9 every Saturday to help kind of get you connected with the Saturn lesson.
Saturday.
So
That's what Saturday is. Saturn's Day.
Saturn's Day, yeah.
So, and then that's
you would be so much of our lives
are centered around this.
Are centered around astrology, but it got crushed by the rise of evangelical Christian monotheism. But look at us. Our clock, our 12-hour clock is the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? Yeah. Our days of the week: Monday is the moon's day, Tuesday is Mars's day, Wednesday is Mercury's day, Thursday is Jupiter's day, Friday is Venus's day. And the reason they're named this is because of Germanic stuff. Yeah. But Saturn is Saturn's day, and then the sun is Sunday. So much of our lives is based around astrology that we don't even really realize.
When I was in Long Beach, and I was in the like year and a day cycle that you go through when you're a neophyte in a like witch tradition and a Wiccan tradition, and it was like Hogwarts. I was basically in Hogwarts. Like we had this big, ginormous binder of all this shit that we had to do. And the most complex section of the class was astrology by far. Yeah. I mean, we spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on astrology. And so for people to just be like, well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't believe in it, but yeah, if you're just focusing on the sun sign, then that's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Folks are usually, not it. I honestly, like, if anything, look at your rising sign, not even your sun sign, if you're looking at a horoscope. Like, it's extremely general on purpose.
It's really like, if people are like, oh, algebra doesn't make sense because it's not real, because it's just letters. And it's like, wait, okay.
Money isn't real.
Yeah. A lot of astrology is based in math and geometry, and so you have to learn all of this. But gosh, I wish I was taught astrology in elementary school, because I was not interested in math at all. But if I had been taught astrology, that you could predict certain events will happen using astrology, and math is connected to astrology, oh my God. Because now I'm like out here, someone says, submarine disaster, and I'm instantly doing math in my head to figure out, okay, where was Saturn when Titanic went down? Okay, yes. So this guy is 60 years old. Awesome. Okay, so he's having his Saturn return. 19 years old, 8th house year. I'm doing math in my head because I'm like, oh my God, you can predict things with math fantastic. But but in elementary school, we didn't have this. So I was like, math sucks. Math is boring.
Same. Yeah. I would have definitely loved math if this was like the trajectory that they offered.
Yeah. Teach
Well,
astrology in elementary school. The
Yeah.
kids will love math because of it.
I don't think it's going to happen in this country anytime soon.
I know. Oh my gosh. And by the way, all the like the anti-queer backlash in schools right now is ridiculous, but also a Saturn and Pisces thing.
Oh, really? Well, I wanted to ask, because you just did say about the Titanic, like, do y'all know about like what was going on during like that time?
Let me pull it up.
I mean, I find this stuff like to be like mind blowing. And I think
I know. Okay, the really cool thing is when you learn astrology, you start going down this hole of every single thing that happens. You're like, let me pull up the chart for it. And every single time when there's like a thing that happens, it's always like the astrology is so freaking loud. And it's always like a very specific event that's happening in the astrology. And it's always like, boom, super loud. You're never going to find something bad happening when, Venus and Jupiter are conjunct. Oh, by the way, we're about to have a Venus retrograde. And the last time Venus was retrograde in this particular sign, which is Leo, it made a conjunction to Jupiter. And do you know what happened on that day that Venus and Jupiter were conjunct in Leo 8 years ago?
No.
Oh, God.
The Supreme Court made gay marriage legal. So that's a really great example of a benefic of Venus and Jupiter. And if you've ever wondered if the stars are pro-gay marriage, the stars are definitely pro-gay marriage. The universe wants gay marriage.
Yes.
I know, right?
The universe wants gay marriage. Absolutely.
That's something that I wish astrology and astrologers, especially like on TikTok and Instagram, would really, since that information spreads so quickly, would make sure that they use that language and make that known. Like the stars can, I think, seem so binary that it's either like going to be the best or it's going to be the worst. And it's very much a gray area, and so many calculations, so many things come into play that make things end up how they do. So it's not just as simple as it's good or bad.
Yeah. Sadly, this time around, when we're going to be going through this Venus retrograde cycle in Leo, not as great. We don't have Jupiter there co-present, making things magical. I have some I think we're going to start to see a lot of labor action, a lot of striking workers, a lot of uprising against capitalism and employers, especially because we're getting this kind of towards July, we're getting this Venus and Mars getting closer together, and then they separate. So this idea of like, fuck you, Mars. Oh shoot, this is YouTube. I can't swear.
We've been this whole time. I want to pause real quick. Oh, go ahead.
I was like piggybacking off of what Carly said, like these two opposite energies in the same sign, just like you said, just being like, I can't get it. Even though they might be going for the same goal, there's like this divide kind of energy that's gonna make that season or this time period, because I've been feeling like Leo season is going to be like spectacular in some ways, but also like very chaotic. There's going to be a lot of energy that is going to be happening around this time.
So you asked about the Titanic chart, and I just pulled it up. And interesting, same signature that was happening when Hamish's submarine squished. I'm sorry, that was like the worst way to describe it. I'll just say the submarine accident. So what we're seeing in the Titanic chart is actually a Mercury retrograde conjunct the sun, square to Neptune. And on the day that the submarine accident happened, it was also when he launched the submarine on a sun square Neptune day. So Neptune is this confused energy, also extremely idealistic energy. Whenever you have planets making that hard square square. What's the word? Aspect.
Aspect.
So, and anytime you see planets making that hard square aspect to Neptune, there is this idealism. The delusion is a better word. This delusion, and I see this a lot in the chart. I'm very interested in the charts of the wives of serial killers, the wives of chronic abusers, who defend their husbands who are terrible. You always see this Venus square Neptune, or this Venus opposite Neptune.
Like, I wonder, like, all the people who were like in love with Richard Ramirez, for example.
Yes.
In their chart.
Messed up. But I know some people in my life who are very like, your husband is an awful person. What is wrong with you? And they have that Venus square Neptune, where they simply cannot see that their partner is a terrible person.
Only the beautiful, idealistic. I mean, Neptune is a higher octave of like Venus, so it's just like this blown out view of something.
I was especially interested in Southern California. There was this terrible story about this husband and wife who had 12 kids, and they kept their kids inside their house. In some cases, they chained them to their beds. They locked them in cages. They never let them leave the house, and they homeschooled them. And then finally, there was one girl who had enough. She escaped. She went to the police. But I was like, what's going on with the wife there in that situation? And it was a hard aspect to Neptune, that Venus hard aspect to Neptune, just simply unable to see that her husband is just a terrible person.
Wow. That's insane. Also, I think somebody asked a little bit ago about a book. I don't know, y'all. Do you have this book? Because this is what the witches gave me, and it's been the most helpful.
Cool. I would personally recommend the best book is Hellenistic Astrology, The Study of Fate and Fortune by Chris Brennan. It's called Ancient Hellenistic Astrology, The Study of Fate and Fortune by Chris Brennan, which is very deep and in depth. And I would also recommend the Astrology podcast with which Chris Brennan hosts. And I love the Astrology podcast because it goes super, super in depth. He has a bunch of series of videos that explain specific concepts in Hellenistic astrology in such a super detailed way that you cannot help but like grasp it. So he's really, really, really good at explaining things. It's a little bit, one of those where it's long, but it feels like you're in a college lecture, and it feels like you're just like learning so much. I would also recommend Adam Ellenboss on YouTube, and and Spencer Michaud. Spencer Michaud is the astrologer who I personally go to all the time because I think he's like the best. But he also is a very Virgo sort of person. He has a lot of Virgo. And since I have a lot of Virgo, the way that he communicates makes total sense to me. So
do you use are you familiar with all this? Do you have others that you use?
The astrology podcast for sure. And I completely agree. It feels like you're in a lecture hall. And as someone with also like 6th house Virgo placements, that like soothes my brain.
I know.
I like it. But another astrologer that I really like that is mostly like on the TikTok and the Instagrams of the world, but I think does a really good job at making concise and very actually good informational predictions and just putting information out there is Maren Altman.
Maren.
Love her.
Who is it?
Maren Altman.
Maren.
Starting her music career right now, but she's still an astrologer. And is someone that I think, especially for like very young audiences, someone that aesthetically she's very pleasing to look at, very easy to like take in that information and like immediate stance, but then you realize that she's actually spitting facts.
Facts. Very pleasant to look at is very true.
I will definitely look her up.
Well,
That's great. That's so many. Like
the Virgo thing as well is very interesting within astrology. A lot of astrologers are Virgo or have Virgo placements.
And actually, we should talk about Mercury and Fen, because Fen has very debilitated Mercury, and
oh no,
you know what it means. You have trouble with Mercury stuff.
I can't remember.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fun.
You have made our point.
No, tell me. Yeah, give me a thing.
Okay, actually, I realized as you guys were talking, I didn't completely go through Fen's chart and discuss what is happening in Fen's life right now with relation to the TV show and everything.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that. Tigresse, you are going through a 4th house perfection year. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay. Which is ruled by Mars, which means Mars is your time lord. So everything that's happening with Mars right now is happening with you. So since you're in a 4th house perfection, that means where you live, your father, and your kind of root of often for me, 4th house had to do with like how I was making money. But not, I don't know if that's the same for you. So what 4th house themes have come up in your life?
Yes, all of those things. Definitely with home and family, wanting to be closer to them. Funny enough, my father got into a pretty bad car accident. So
Third house, Saturn.
I've been really drawn to just hanging out with my family, other loved ones, getting closer to my romantic partner as well, and how that's all very new for me. All of that's very new for me. And yes, my career, which has been like ruling over my head literally for as long as I could work. And it is evolving and it's changing in a way that I view as very healing and very beautiful. That's how I'm taking my Saturn return, is just like really trying to view it instead of as a hardship, as a point or a chance, an opportunity to heal. I don't know what was coming out there.
Yeah. So your time lord Mars has been transiting, or has begun transiting your 8th house. So since Mars entered Leo, have you noticed any 8th house themes such as debts to other people, death, and all those obligations, debts, karma?
Death is another theme that I feel like has been like very heavy and ruled throughout my life, whether it was literally or just in other ways. I think I'm, and this might sound weird, attracted to death themes. I literally have memento mori tattooed on my knees. I think the process of death, which to me just equals a transformation, forming, is it's interesting. I think it's beautiful, and death is something, even working within the death space is something that I'm thinking more about, and hence here we are.
Yeah, as a Saturn ruled person, Saturn is the planet of death. So it makes total sense that you are thinking about death constantly in your life. And death is such a taboo thing in our culture. And it's really a shame. Like you look at those old Victorian photos of those death portraits that the Victorians take, and I think they're really cool. But whenever those start getting shared on social media, people are like, that's horrible, that's blah blah blah. People are really negative towards it. And it's really interesting, this trend that we're going through right now in this current century, where death is such a thing that you're not supposed to talk about, joke about,
It's
embrace.
So, yeah. I find it, like I said, interesting in a way, or an opportunity to really understand life as you are experiencing it now. Through death, you can live better, I think. But that's my chart.
Yeah, and
even the good things about death, like the ability to communicate with someone after they've died, like it's such we're not allowed to talk about it in society. If you go out into the world and you're like, I'm really interested in communicating with the dead. I went through a period where I had Saturn transiting my 11th house, and I predicted my roommate's death. I had a dream that he died. I warned my other roommate, and then a month later, he was in a car accident and he died. That was probably the most supernatural, weird thing that ever happened to me. But even when that happened, and I was like wanting to acknowledge that with the other roommate, I'm like, do you remember I called you? I told you I had a dream that he died, and then he died. It was so not okay to talk about. It was like, no, done. There was a huge wall there that it was not okay.
Yeah. That's really common.
Yeah. I think it also has to do too with there's even more pushback when you are a non-cis man person, because it's almost cool or for guys to be into the paranormal, for guys to be into the cryptids and the aliens and everything. And if a guy goes off and starts talking about cryptids and aliens and ghosts, it's like, oh, that goofy fella. Oh, we love him. Oh, he's so
smart, intelligent man.
And we let him go off and talk about it, and we're like, oh, that's cute. But as soon as a woman starts being like, Sasquatch, aliens, let's go, all of a sudden, all of the male Scullys come out and are are discrediting her or making fun of her, or
fetishizing in some cases, which is not cool either.
But I've been thinking a lot lately, what if the X-Files was Mulder was a woman and Scully was a man, how that vibe would shift, right? The enthusiasm, because female enthusiasm or, non-cis man enthusiasm is so not cool in our society.
That's so true. This is so great. Like, what is this called? This is called, there's like a term for this where you like switch the roles. It's perspective by incongruity. It's like a feminist like rhetorical term. It's my favorite one too, because it's so like, what if Mulder was Scully?
But it
so female enthusiasm is it's not something that we talk about, but it's so pushed back on in our current society, in our current this patriarchal system. We're cool with women when they are aloof, when they are uninterested, when you have to convince them of something. That's why Scully, I mean, I love Scully, obviously, but the reason why so many men are okay with the Scully is, the idea of a man convincing a woman of something is very appealing. But the idea of a woman convincing a man of something is disgusting. Just similarly, like a woman being funny, making a man joke, disgusting, right? Because humor is something that belongs to men. Curiosity is something that belongs to men. Enthusiasm is something that belongs to men. Women are supposed to be aloof and be the one that needs to be convinced.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I didn't ever think about that, and that's such a good.
I mean, that's essentially what's kind of happening with this show, and why we want to just queer up this space. Like, not only, yes, like sexuality, we are all queer, but literally just making this space different and giving it something different, because we've only seen one lens. What if it was from a feminine, femme, woman lens? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when a bunch of like you said, like through a bunch of weirdos through a feminist lens are investigating the paranormal and also attempting to contact in other entities? What does that look like? What does that feel like? How does that change the dynamics of the group? And we talk about this like in a lot of the live streams about how like in Tigresse, we've talked about this ad nauseum, this like Same, Kristen. Even though I went to Hogwarts, I forgot it all. And maybe that has to do with my Mercury.
It's a Mercury. It's your Mercury. It's okay. We have some dignified Mercuries. Tigresse is a Mercury Gemini. I'm a Mercury Virgo. So we can do the astrology for you, little Mercury and Sagittarius. It's okay.
All right, just do my baby. You don't have to do like in depth because we are getting close to time here.
Oh gosh, we should talk for like 2 hours. I can go on. We need to we can go on forever. Are we allowed to go over time?
We can go over, but I don't know if we can go the full time just because we've got like moderators in the back and stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I mean, like, we can do this again.
Okay, yeah, I would love to do it again. See, I am trying really hard to not work 7 jobs, and then I will be able to open myself up to creativity and banter on podcasts. That does this, like doing this, it brings me so much joy. And your podcast, Follow the Woo, it gives me so much dopamine in my life. Like it's in my regular, like my little podcast rotation is like my little dopamine creation device. And you are in that dopamine creation device because you bring dopamine into my system. So I appreciate that, Ben.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I feel like as neurodivergent folks, we're all looking for hits of dopamine. So that's a great compliment. Thank you. Continue. What were you going to say?
So Fen, you are a Leo rising with your sun in your 6th house. Interesting how we have just so much 6th house energy between Fen. So the idea of being of service, Fen and Tigresse. Tigresse has that Mercury and Venus in the 6th house, and Fen has the sun in the 6th house. So the 6th house also deals with health and health conditions, and so we talked about that quite a bit. That health. Also, 6th house is small animals. So you could often, and this is actually in some cultures, the idea of having a small animal around helps to mitigate some of that negative 6th house health energy. So if you've been wondering, how can I maybe obviously a small animal is something that you need to be of service to for the duration of their life. And so it's a huge responsibility. But if you had the heart space and the availability to take care of a small animal, that is a way to mitigate some of the 6th house negative situations. But it's a placement of hard work, and you've got that Sun Neptune conjunction. So we've already talked about how Neptune can lead to confusion, delusion. It can, in many cases, make you very ambitious and very aspirational. But you have to be worried about things being unclear. And with the debilitated Mercury, so Sagittarius is one of the signs that Mercury does worst in because it's the opposite of its home. So it's where Mercury is exiled. And Mercury in Sagittarius is one of the significations of the Donner Party, to give you kind of a little taste of what that's about. So what happened with the Donner Party is they began their journey. They made the bad choice to go down the shortcut during when Mercury was retrograde in Sagittarius. And so Sagittarius is a sign of vision, of we're going to get there, of long distance travel, of I have this huge idea, and I'm going to go for it. And then Mercury is in that sign is like, forget details, forget organization, forget like keeping everything in order and making the right choice. We're going to just, trust faith and go. And, the Virgos and Geminis will be like, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at the map first. Let's chart our course. Let's make sure that our ship is ready. Our sails are all sewed together. We need to make sure our navigation is working correctly. Is our compass aligned? So the Virgos on your ship are going to be like, okay, here's everything that we need to do to chart our course correctly. But the Mercury in Sagittarius sea captain is going to be like, fuck it all, let's just go that way and see what happens. Meanwhile, there's a hurricane, right?
That sounds accurate. Tigresse, does that sound accurate? Say
you to it. There's something wonderful about that. That usually means that you can see the bigger picture, like easily, very clearly. A go-getter of some sorts, and like she was saying, an adventurer. So you're not scared to take risks, which work out sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll be fed on a vampire just in the middle of the day when I have a million other things to do. Not very wise. Yeah. But so, also you're saying like that, like, oh, keep going. Sorry.
So I would say, like, for those of you out there who have a debilitated Mercury in Sagittarius, like Fen does, surround yourself with some Mercury in Virgo and Mercury in Gemini people with those, you know, good working Mercuries, because we will ground you and we will make sure that everything is organized and lined up and ready to go in the direction that you want it to. But also when we say things like no, let's not do that, trust the Mercury and Virgo Gemini people, because we are will help to avoid major disasters.
So what are your Mercury in? You two?
I'm Mercury and Virgo.
So I just basically need to call you up.
I know, you luckily surrounded yourself with the right people. Yeah.
I also love like Virgo energy in general, because it does feel really nice and like grounding. So I do, and as a Capricorn, I do like the organizational component, but then I do have that Leo rising, so I like have a freak flag and I will just like go and like jump off the deep end, and everyone's like, Fen, how about no?
And not just a Leo rising, you have the ruler of Leo in your chart is conjunct Neptune, so it's very, very woohoo visionary, which is good. But just, you know, just as a sea captain, make sure that you surround yourself with good crew who can make sure that your ship stays on track and doesn't run into any icebergs or hurricanes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I'm gonna keep that in my noggin, that if I'm like jump right in, call Carly and Tigresse.
And the great thing is you do have right on your descendant, you have Jupiter. So one of the best areas in your life is your relationships, your partnerships with other people. And other people bring a lot of good things to your life, especially people who are foreigners or people who are like a spiritual bent, higher education, all of that. Those people are really beneficial to you. But interestingly, since you are a night chart, Jupiter's not super, super good in your chart. Since you are a night chart, your best planets are Venus and Saturn. And interestingly, both Venus and Saturn are in your 5th house. So your creativity is both the best thing about your life and the worst thing about your life. Yes. And themes around children and having children.
My wife just goes, accurate.
So so themes around having children and children themes are both extremely difficult and extremely good. So you probably like being around children, but there's maybe difficulty having them in your life, difficulty, or sometimes you're like, you know, you might be a little bit too hard on them, and romance too. So there's constantly an interplay of like, this is the best thing, but also this is the hardest thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're getting we got to wrap it up signal from the New Blood moderators, but this has been awesome. And I'm glad we got to talk about everybody's charts and astrology in general. And also like astrocartography a little bit, you know, the idea that like
we didn't really get to talk about it.
really get to it, but the idea, like I touched on it for a second, that we would call you, you know, in advance about like, should we be at this place? Should we be at this place at this time? I think that's something that like maybe we can do like a podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, do a follow-up or something and talk about like the astrocartography components, because I think the people in this live stream would be interested to hear about like, how did we pick the places that we got to, other than just like following synchronicity. We really did, you know, have many conversations with you and Tigresse about figuring out like where our magic would be most potent, and as a group, not just like the crazy like sea captain who's going off the deep end. So yeah, and is there any last recommendations or like links or anything that you want to like offer?
Oh, I never pitched my book, which is completely like off topic to what we're doing here. But my young adult novel is The Reckless Kind, available at bookstores everywhere. And it is about queer kids in 1904 Scandinavia. And even though it's not a paranormal book per se, it's very inspired by astrology, and the events that happen are very inspired by astrology. So if you're kind of interested, if you like my vibe and you want to support me by buying my book or picking it up at a library, it's available at bookstores and libraries near you. The Reckless Kind by Carly Heath. And you can follow me on Twitter at Carly L. Heath, or Instagram, I think, is Carly Lynn Heath. They're slightly different. Yeah, cool.
And then you should read it because it's very good. And then Tigresse, do you have any last words or recommendations or anything floating around your brain?
Yeah, I would love for everyone, of course, to support New Blood and human beings. It's truly something that is magical, and I think just interesting in the paranormal space. So love that.
I want to second that. I think everyone should go to the Kickstarter and fund this, because Fen is so great. And if you haven't listened to Fen's podcast, It brings me so much joy. I'm definitely aligned with your vision for how to address the paranormal. And I think it's an important voice out there in the paranormal community. And that I think we need to go more Fen's direction than the direction that some paranormal stuff has been in the past.
Yes, and Tigresse's.
Yeah.
I need you by my side, you Mercury and Gemini.
But yeah, other than that, you can continue to follow this by following me as well, tigresse.bleu on Instagram, and keep up with any of the other astrology, tarot, and other several jobs that I do on there if you're interested. So.
And are you doing virtual tarot readings?
Yes. I do virtual tarot readings if that is something that you need. If you're local, you can schedule with me in person as well. Reiki as well can be virtual too.
I'm going to sign up for a tarot and Reiki with you.
Yes, please.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
And tarot is something that we use a lot in human beings. I mean, we use it in every episode, not just a lot. Like, we make it an intrinsic part of each episode. So we want this to happen. So help us make this happen when we're done with this live stream. If you could go over to the Kickstarter and help us, that would be great. All right, everybody have a great night.